If you are a regular listener and know me from my TV days, or if you're a new listener to Talk Radio and used to follow me on The Right Stuff, you're going to love what I'm about to say, because I thought it would be a really interesting idea to do a phone-in on older parents, because these three don't know it. I'm going to be an older parent.
Oh, congratulations!
There we go, Kevin. I've had to keep this secret from you.
What Henrietta said, I bet he's having a kid. And I said, no way. He hasn't got it in him.
Oh, that is such good news.
Beautiful.
Wow, congratulations, man. That's amazing.
She's due on Valentine's Day.
No.
And it's a girl. Amelia, my wife, we are married. She has had a very, very difficult time of it. And some of you will know that we've been trying through IVF after she had an ectopic, and it tore her up inside, all very awful. And so we've been trying on IVF for 8 years, and she gets pregnant each time and then miscarries at 11 or 12 weeks, which is a very difficult and uncomfortable thing.
Yes.
And we had some frozen embryos, and she'd gone through 2 out of 3 of those, and the last one wasn't very big, and everyone's a bit shruggy shoulders, and she was thinking about giving it to science for scientific research. I'm 53, coming up 54. She's 42, and we're just thinking it's not going to happen. It's too late. She was quite sympathetic, Amelia, to the fact that I'm getting on, and I don't really want to spend the last chapter of my life looking after bloody kids. But anyway, that's what I'm going to be doing now, and I'm delighted and thrilled. I'm not going to use the miracle. I'm not going to use the miracle thing, because it's not a miracle. It's the appliance of science. But I will say, Amelia's very lucky. And I must be very lucky too.
Did you get another man in then to help?
I'm very glad you asked.
It's great news. Who's the father?
Yeah.
In fact, he likened Theresa May's Brexit plan to a suicide bomber's vest, and this is just weeks after he likened women in burqas to letterboxes. Much has been said. I think we'd agree on Trump's use of inflammatory language. One day immigrants are taking our jobs, the next they're rapists. The same argument, actually, that was floated by the far-right Sweden Democrats in the election there. And, of course, Labour is not immune to this. It found itself caught up in this linguistic hell too, after centrist Shukar Amuna branded Labour, his own party, institutionally racist, and urged Corbyn to call off the attack dogs. The use of language by politicians, I seem to feel it is moving into the gutter, that it is becoming more extreme. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, I think Trump has changed the discourse of politics in general. So I think Trump has come in with this. He's thrown all the rules up in the air, whereas before politicians were very mindful, I think, and very measured in what they say in their language. I think he kind of said, look, people have looked at it and said, all right, he said all of these stuff, which is unsavoury, racist, misogynistic, and he still got elected. And I think that Boris has taken a leaf out of his rule book. Apparently he's met one of Trump's special advisors. I'm not sure if he works with him or not, and he just seems to have taken a leaf out of his book. And I think it's dangerous because...
Go on, this is the critical issue, really. Is it dangerous? I come from a tabloid background where we used to run headlines of a similar sort of provocative nature on a daily basis.
Yeah, but then we didn't have social media underpinning all of that and fueling all of that. And I think what the police have said, and they've said to us and they've said publicly, is that we're ignoring the rise of sort of far-right extremists. And I think what this narrative does is it feeds into that. So we kind of have to be responsible and mindful, because, you might start something to just get in the papers, get on the front pages, but actually the ripple effects of that runs quite deep. What people want is a party and a government that looks after the many in society and all the issues that affect our daily lives. And we're not getting that at the moment. And I think that's what the media fears the most. They fear that there is this sort of groundswell of people saying, the Labour Party's manifesto, people said, oh, that's the worst manifesto ever. It went out to the people. It got leaked. And, the media thought that it got leaked. The media thought it's going to be like catastrophe, and it wasn't, because people were like, well, this
But you
makes
still lost
sense.
the election, which of course is that minor detail that everybody stumbles over. It was, the manifesto may have cut
actually,
through, but you still.
We didn't lose it. We didn't win, but we didn't lose the election. Whereas Theresa May lost her majority, and that's huge because she was 24 points ahead.
True
And so
enough.
She should have had a huge majority,
But of course,
and she hasn't.
But Tony Blair had a centre-left, one might even say centre-right agenda over his 13 years in office, and he won election after election after election, which begs the question: if Labour followed a more centrist agenda, would you have won that last election?
No, I mean, because that was on the back of a really sort of right-wing Tory government, and so that was on the back of that. Now we're at a place where people are a lot more enlightened. Their everyday lives have been, doctors and nurses are struggling with like 1% pay rise, unable to eat. Food banks are increasing. I mean, all of this stuff affects everybody's lives. People keep talking about, issues as though it doesn't affect the many. It's the many people that are suffering right now, and they need to see a change. And that's why it's important that we continue down the path that we're going.
But the many do seem to be totally divided as to whether they want to be in the European Union or out. And when it comes to mainstream parties, there is no choice, because both the Tories and the Labours are broadly going in the same direction. Does it really matter, though, Dawn? I mean, at the end of the day, if he introduces people to the idea of jerk chicken and then they wander down some of the wonderful restaurants in London...
You know how many shops... The thing is, it's not actually really about the jerk rice. As irritated as I was by it, it's about the bigger picture. I mean, the abuse that I got afterwards was just astounding.
In the light of what happened to you after that, do you wish you didn't say it?
No.
Because was it really worth the agony?
Well, it was...
I mean, you really did become Twitter victim of the day, didn't you?
I mean, for over a week. I mean, I had people saying...
Lynch mob were after you.
I had people saying, I don't like Jamie Oliver, but how dare you as a black woman criticise a white man because he wants to do jerk?
When you tie people up in so many invisible knots about what they can and cannot say, what they can eat and what they can't eat, what they can promote and what they can't promote, that this actually opens the door to the sort of explosive, violent language that we might be seeing from some of our politicians, that you actually got ordinary people are tied up and they can't explain themselves without fear of being slapped down. So they look to their political masters who are out there doing it for them.
I know, but this is what I think is the thing. It's about just being respectful. It's all about respect. So it's fine. You can do what you want. You can say what you want, but it's just you do it in a respectful way, or in a way that you acknowledge where something's come from, or...
So if it was Jamie Oliver's Jamaican jerk recipe, you would have been happy?
Well, no, if it was but it wasn't even flavoured. So somebody sent me Tilda's rice. Well, another chef said to me, you haven't said anything about this. And I looked at the ingredients and it said jerk flavour. So at least it had the flavour, so they can put jerk on it because it had the flavour. Yeah. But it's the wider principle of appropriation that has gone back centuries and decades. And I don't, you could get really deep about this and people say, oh, it's only rice.
The Mueller case, the Russian stuff, the sex stuff, the Stormy Daniels stuff, the thing that seems to have really done for him is this op-ed piece in the New York Times, the anonymous article saying actually he's not running the country, it's anonymous men in suits who have taken it upon themselves to run the White House and to keep him out of the loop to protect the world.
Do you think the bubble's burst?
Well, do you know what? I mean, we've thought that the bubble had burst many times before. I think that you're right with the op-ed piece. It's also come on the back of the Woodward book. And now these Omarosa tapes that she's kind of like judiciously releasing every few weeks. Because the thing is that when her book came out, it was fairly easy to trash because she was a disgruntled employee. She had also been on his TV show. She'd been
There's
fired.
the Michael Wolff book as well, don't
And the Michael Wolff book as well, yeah. I mean, although that's now so far back that it almost doesn't count.
It's like a book a month, isn't it?
That's the
book of the month.
That's the
Donald Trump's
phenomenon.
book of the month.
Is you cannot... Even you cannot hold your righteous anger, those that are offended by him, for long enough to actually address that particular issue before he throws more things to upset you. So you're constantly chasing your tail, saying, how can he say that? He should apologise. Oh, my God, he's just said that. He should apologise. By the time you've had 6 or 7 of these, you've forgotten what the first one was.
I think that's true, but also I think that much like Brexit here, I think that the people who are his core support have invested so much in it that it's almost impossible for them to back out of it.
In caricaturing Serena, Knight has exaggerated some of her features, and
Which is
by
what
that,
cartoonists do, isn't it?
and the lips is very prevalent, and there seem to be complaints from sort of high-profile black commentators as well as the J.K. Rowlings of this world that in doing that, in exaggerating her lips, he makes her resemble caricatures that probably did carry racist overtones from days gone by. And I can see that. The trouble for me, Sanjeev, is I can't work out how you can caricature someone without exaggerating their features, whether they be racial or not.
Do you know what? At first glance at that cartoon, I didn't think it was racist. I thought
You're changing your mind, right?
Do you know what? But I think there is a point that is being made that's worth considering, because I didn't think about the history of depictions. So in and of itself, I saw the meltdown on the news, and it's clearly Serena Williams. It's not kind of a generic black person, and so in that sense, I knew who it was. So in that context, I didn't see it as racist.
Because it was about an individual.
Yeah, it's about a very specific individual. It's not saying, black people lose their temper. Yeah. But if one was to put it in that context of the historical depictions, you look at old sort of cartoons in Punch and stuff like that, going back, then it takes on a slightly different...
Except I see regularly Jewish politicians, UK Jewish politicians, are given... if they have bigger noses, their noses are exaggerated.
That's true. But if you were to take a person with a large nose who was from the Jewish faith and you exaggerated it, then in this day and age, that's got to be a conscious thing.
I think the Labour Party's made extraordinary progress in the 3 years since Jeremy was elected. We are now the biggest left-of-centre political party in Western Europe. We've got considerably more members than all of the other political parties in the UK put together. We have a policy programme, which if you actually break down the individual policies, are supported by between 70 and 80% of the public. We've inspired people who had previously been switched off politics. We got one of the biggest vote totals at the last election, but sadly not quite enough. So we've made extraordinary progress. However, there are still a number of doubting Thomases, if I can put it like that, or malcontents, perhaps, is another way of describing them, who I think have actually undermined the progress that we have made. And sadly, some of them are in Parliament, in the Parliamentary Labour Party.
Quite a lot of them, isn't it, the case, Chris? I mean, if you looked at that no confidence motion, it was 3-1.
Well, indeed, that's right, and that's where the main opposition actually lies, regrettably. I think many of those who were uncomfortable about Jeremy being elected in the first place, I think, were pleasantly surprised, or vaguely unpleasantly surprised, perhaps, by the basis on some of them, when we had the biggest increase in vote share since 1945. But
that's
I think what is important now is for the Parliamentary Labour Party to come together and to actually focus on defeating the Conservatives. There's an attempt by the establishment, by the forces who control the media, which isn't balanced in any way, shape or form, when you consider that the vast majority of the print media is owned by about 4 tax-exiled billionaires, and they clearly want the status quo to prevail. But I don't accept that there's this public perception. You say that, well, it's a black mark against Jeremy. People just aren't listening. They're tuning out of this nonsense. They recognise that this is just a lie. I mean, look, Jeremy might be perceived as someone that people have a problem with in terms of his economic agenda and so on. But I think everybody acknowledges that Jeremy has spent his entire life fighting discrimination, standing up to racism in all its forms.
I lost the best part of £10,000 this summer in a very, very elaborate con. And the producer, Phil Wildman, thought I should share it with you, lest you fall prey in a similar way. And it starts like this. I was doing a bit of business with a builder overseas, and we've been working together off and on for about 3 years. We were coming towards the end of a project, and I had to make a final payment. In the interim, as it comes towards the end of the project, I received some emails from the builder, and they're the usual chatty form, building project's coming to the end, can you send me the $7,500 you owe me? Right, yeah, of course. Then and this is probably when I should have heard an alarm bell, but I didn't. He said, the good news is we can pay the money into a UK account instead of my overseas account where you have to pay loads more taxes, more complicated. Won't that be great? Because I'm doing some business with somebody else in the UK. Okay, save money on bank charges, etc. I'll do it. So I sent the money to this person's account. I'm tempted to read out his name. I'm not allowed to. Anyway, 2 days later, I receive another email from my builder saying, thanks very much for the money. Job's nearly done. Looking forward to seeing you next week, because I was going away on holiday to hook up with him. And he said, before you get here, I'm personally a little bit hard up. Could you see me right by giving me a little bit more, 1,500 quid, and I'll give it back to you when we meet up? Well, I was going to see him in 3 days. So, okay, sure. So I wired another 1,500 quid to that account. Arrive and meet my builder 3 days later. Hi, nice to see you. And he says, yeah, the building work's coming on great. You going to pay me? I already have. So what transpired is that my builder's Gmail email was hacked. They read all the email exchange that we'd had over 3 years. So they knew all the names. They knew Amelia's name, all the building work we were doing, all the monies that had been going backwards and forwards. They then copied his Gmail address but changed one letter of his name. So it looked broadly the same. And I just fell for it, hook, line and sinker. Nearly 10 grand out of pocket.
How do you think you can police such a law?
Well, how do you police, Kevin, domestic violence? And if it's something that you think is wrong, you have a law against it. When you become aware of it, you tackle it. Clearly, there's gradation in terms of you use common sense in terms of whether you just give somebody a warning and say you should not be doing this, it is not within the law, or whether you take other enforcement action. And along with every law that we've got, you use common sense in terms of how you react to it.
Common sense. The mother that hit her child twice on the arm with a hairbrush, her child was put into care. And I am left wondering what the greater sin on that child would be. To be hit twice on the arm for a hairbrush, for being whatever in the morning, not getting ready for school, or to be put into care.
How well do you know that story?
I've been following it in the papers up to the point that it went to court.
And what you know is what you read in the papers. Because I would be incredibly surprised. I would be amazed if a child was put in care because...
So you don't know the story?
Because her mother hit her on the arm twice with an hairbrush. That would be absolutely astounding. It would be crazy.
So it undermines your argument about common sense then, doesn't it?
And social workers spend their time doing.
Yeah, it does undermine the argument about common sense, though, when you have an uncommon sense argument.
It would undermine the argument about common sense if you and I knew all the facts about the story.
Do you fancy living in a country where children can nip round to the local police station, report their parents for smacking them, coppers turn up on the doorstep, arrest the mum or the dad, take them down for interview? Don't you find that prospect somewhat Orwellian?
But don't you think that the police...
Well, do you find that Orwellian? Do you find that Orwellian?
Don't you think that the police have got plenty to be doing? Do you think...
Well, do you find it Orwellian?
No. Listen,
you don't find it Orwellian?
I'm trying to answer it, OK? Do you want the answer or not?
Yes, please.
OK. Do you think that children generally would be rushing out of their homes down to a police station saying, arrest my parents?
I would have done it when I was a kid, for a laugh.
I don't think that it would happen, and I think that...
Kids will do it for a laugh, Ray. They will. They'll do it for a laugh. Why at the Oscars or the BAFTAs, big awards, and the next day in the newspaper, best and worst dressed, there is never a man ever in those pictures, only women.
That's sexism, though. There you go, isn't it?
Because we're far more interested in the media looking at exactly as you pointed out, and I'm not even going to defend it in any other ways, because women do that is what sells the papers. I mean, as you boys know. But at the same time, when it comes into the question of affairs, straight away we've got the guns out. Oh, there she is again. It's almost, there's the stereotype playing out. We're going to just sort of...
But Anna, Boris Johnson is a married man. So does she not have a duty to stay away from married men? I know he has a duty to stay away from people that aren't his wife, but that's Boris. And Boris is roundly castigated for his behaviour in the popular press.
Yeah, as he should be. And yeah, absolutely. And she has, and this is the thing, it is about breaking that solidarity in womanhood. And women, it's because women are less likely to be the ones having the affair. So the minute it happens, suddenly it's the woman portrayed as is particularly a bad one. And I see it not just professionally, but personally as well. And somehow we sort of, in inverted commas, expect the guys. Men are expected to cheat. So therefore, it almost becomes, well, that's just expected. So we throw even more crap, excuse my language, at the woman because she has dared to step over that line. But absolutely, she knew exactly what she was getting into. If you get involved with a married man, then you have to expect to take some heat as a result of it. And if you do post pictures in the public eye as well, then yes, particularly in the job that she's doing, it's pretty remiss of her to have not expected these to have come to light. And
Anna, to be fair, she's not one of the signatories on this letter. These are other people, some of them known to her, some of them are friends, some of them who aren't known to her.
I don't know what's going to happen with this Brexit thing. I'll tell you the one thing, I have a strong feeling we could see United Ireland quicker than we've ever look, I think most people in Northern Ireland don't want Brexit. They want to be part of the EU, so the only way they could do that is by having a United Ireland.
I think it was on Monday last week. I think it was the Irish Times, but certainly there was a front page story coming from Ireland claiming that there was now pretty much broad support, majority support for a United Ireland. The headline was something that along the lines of the DUP and its Brexit stance has managed to deliver what the IRA, the UDA, the British government, blah, blah, blah.
The IRA has been trying to do it for 102 years. But it's a horrible thing to think, though. You know, if a United Ireland does come from this, it'd be horrible to think that, you know, this happened over a financial situation, over people thinking about money and, you know, rather than what they actually believe. If for all these years they've been going, we don't want a United Ireland. Actually, I mean, financially beneficial for us to do that. Yeah, it sounds good to me. It'd be horrible if that happened.
Ireland is not in thrall to Catholicism like it used to be. No. So will that, do you think, bring about a kind of harmony in Northern Ireland?
Yeah, but when I grew up in Ireland, there was 3 million people in Ireland, and there were 3 million people that were born in Ireland. There's probably 6 million people in Ireland now, and probably 2 million of them were born in Ireland. So, you know, with more immigration coming in, it's gonna fade out, and I think that's what's going to happen in Northern Ireland too.
Exactly.
The more, you know, the more immigration that comes into Northern Ireland, you know, it's not just going to be Catholics and Protestants. You're going to have so many different people and races and religions, and just the place just needs to become neutral.
It's a global village, Brian. I tell you what is fascinating is hearing that the passion still. I mean, I know you think of yourself as removed from it, but as soon as you put your mind back in what it was like growing up there, you paint a very vivid picture.
Yeah. But not a nice picture. It's a picture that we never want to come back, and putting a border up would just be a big step backwards for Ireland, I think.